Good afternoon, I'm Drew Holley with BIS Benefits. I'm one of the partners here. We're an insurance agency in Metro Atlanta where we do business-to-business employee benefits or the commercial insurance division as well. Today we're going to be talking about disability, really in the context assuming you're an employer listening to this or an employee that might have a company that offers disability. There's two common types of disability policies, short-term and long-term disability. Very creative names in the insurance industry. So short-term, you need to understand that if you're an employee, some employers pay 100% of this cost, and just for being an employee and full-time, you should thank that employer. That's very generous of them, but it's also can be pretty common in the workplace where you're just auto-enrolled in either one or both of these. Some employers might have an option. They may say, hey, we pay for your short-term, but long-term you have to pay for it. Or it could be an option to where these are offered, but you have to pay 100% of it. These are typically not extremely expensive types of policies. They're going to put it in your cost per paycheck. Typically, short-term can have variations. So a very common policy in short-term, if your employer pays for this or if you have the option, if you're an employee listening, is it would say, hey, you have a sickness or an accident, okay? And they'll pay you typically 60% of your paycheck. Sometimes they can go 70, sometimes they can go higher, all right? It all depends, but the most common is usually 60%. So if you made $1,000 a week, the policy might say, we'll pay you 60% of that for up to a certain period. Maybe it's 11 weeks, maybe it's 13 weeks. Some can go longer, some can go 26 weeks. That's less common, but these are some examples. But typically we don't see them beyond 26. Most common 11 or 13 weeks. And a lot of the policies will say you have a waiting period provision. What does that mean? It basically means you got sick, you had an accident, and you can't file the claim and get payments day one. They may want you to wait 7 days or 14 days. Most of it, it's exact same on an accident or sickness. Again, the policy could be different depending on how complex maybe the broker, the HR manager made it to offer to you. One thing just to mention is maternity is considered a short-term event. So it's important to know how much will you get on maternity leave? Well, if it's 60% and if it's 11 weeks or 13 or 26, that could be a portion of how long you're going to get that benefit. So good to know that. Some say 70%. Some employers might even add a kicker for maternity on top of what the policy pays. Some of this is an insurance policy. Sometimes employers, though, decide to do short-term on a self-insured basis. We really don't see that on the long-term basis. Let me explain what long-term basis. So again, short-term, eventually 60% up to a certain amount. Maybe it's $1,000 a week. So if you're looking at that and saying, well, that's not my full paycheck. Yeah, got to read the fine print. Okay, it's not meant to necessarily cover your full paycheck, but just to kind of keep things afloat while you're either have an accident or you were injured. Long-term disability, let's go to this. We at BIS think long-term is really, really important, even if you're an employer and you can't afford to offer it because you could offer it voluntarily. Because long-term, depending on the contract, could pay all the way up to Social Security normal retirement age. Why does it say Social Security retirement age? It also could say up to age 65. So a lot different than only paying for 11 weeks or 13 weeks. If you're a 25-year-old and unfortunately you get hit by a truck outside of work, well, you could be disabled for 30 years. Oh my gosh, that's a big deal. Well, do you want to still have a paycheck and still be able to maintain at least some sort of ability to take care of yourself? Again, long-term disability, they tend to cover, just like short-term, 60% of your income. So it's important to know that. A lot of insurance carriers, they say, well, this will pay weekly and then this will pay monthly. Why do they do that? I think just to confuse us, but maybe that's why I have a career. But important to know that long-term, it could pay out for 2 years, it could pay out for 5, could pay out for 65, or Social Security retirement age. That's the longest. And depending on your generation, that could have been 65, it could be 66, it could be 67 and a half, you don't really know. All right, so long-term disability is something that you would really, really want because, again, imagine getting a paycheck for 20 years, 30 years of your life, okay? If you went through open enrollment and you didn't take this and it was $10 a month, That's a huge deal. So if you were to not take this, I would just say that that is a big deal in the event a claim, something happens. And if you worked at a company and you had a claim and you can no longer work at that company, that policy goes with you. So it's important to understand that. So again, a lot of employers pay this or they offer it voluntarily. So it's important to pay attention as an employee listening. If you're an employer and you don't offer these things, at a minimum, you should look to offer them 100% paid by the employees, because employees would appreciate, because these tend to be much harder contracts to get personally. You can buy disability policies personally, like buying an individual life insurance product. Tends to be more extensive underwriting, a little more harder to get from an underwriting. So easiest thing to do is to be covered on this sense. And again, there's a lot more to go through, a lot more types of fine details, but what I look for and what BIS tends to look for is if you have long-term covering for 2 years or 5 years, is better than 11 weeks or 26 weeks. We try to sell policies that are not much more expensive, that cover to age 65, more importantly, Social Security retirement age. Because at the end of the day, if you truly are injured or had an accident outside of work and you cannot go back to work, you want that to cover you for a long, extended period of time. And so very important to read these details. Thank you. And if you don't know this or don't feel confidence in your broker, we would love to help you. Thank you.